皆さんこんにちは。フィリピンアセットコンサルティングの家村です。今日はですね、こちらですね、私今マニラに来てるんですけども、こちらのね、チャイナタウンにあるですね、AB キャピタルさんのオフィスの方にお邪魔してまして、今日はですね、ジョビス副社長ですね、ちょっとですね、今日ご参加いただいて、最近のマーケットとかですね、これから今年どうなのかとか、ちょっともうちょっと中長期的にね、どんな感じになっていくのか、ちょっとその辺のねことをちょっと聞いてみたいと思います。Thank you, Joby-san, for joining our video.
Thank you for coming, Itoshi-san. It's great to finally meet you.
Yes. ジョビス副社長とは、毎週ね実はお会いしてるんですけども、オンラインで、会ってるので、今回初めてねお会いするという形になります。So could you introduce yourself first, briefly?
Okay, I'm Jovis Bistan. I'm with AB Capital Securities. I've been with the firm, based on my estimates, I've actually lost count, Itoshi-san, but I would say I'm almost 3 decades with the company. I love the company, been loyal. For most of my tenure, I've been the head of research for the firm, and basically with expertise in economics and technical analysis. But before that, I was with another brokerage for 3 years, Dharmala Securities. So basically, almost all of my working life has been with the industry. Yes.
30年ですね、この AB キャピタルでお仕事をされていて、AB キャピタルの中でもですね、本当に一番長いキャリアの、方なんですけども、ずっとですね、リサーチですね、調査の方をね、やってこられて、おりまして、マクロ経済とかですね、に非常にフィリピンのマクロ経済とかにね、非常に精通されているということで、毎週ね、この会員のストマスの会員の方向けにはこのウィークリーラップアップっていうのをやってましてね、ジョビスさんからね、いろいろこうね、個別の株のお話とかも伺ってますけども、今日はね、ちょっとね、全体的なね、フィリピンの株式市場の動きについてね、聞いていきたいと思います。Okay, why don't we start?
Sure.
Question to you. Okay, firstly, the market situation recently a little weak, I think. So, what do you analyze current market situation? First, yes.
Well, if you're asking about the current market situation, we've had a very strong bear market rally, Itoshi-san. From the bottoms in October, I think the market may have peaked in February. What has somehow dampened the bull run recently was the sort of disappointment on the part of the market with regards to the behavior of consumer prices. Because towards the end of the year, the market was already anticipating that inflation may have already peaked and it was already going to go on a downtrend. But surprisingly, particularly for the Philippine setting, we were hit with a sharp spike in January, wherein month-on-month inflation went up by 1.7%. And if I'm not mistaken, if you use the current base year of 2018, that's a record high. So the record high inflation more or less changed the view for inflation for this year. In fact, the BSP has already raised their average inflation for this year to around 6%. We actually see it higher.
Thank you. ちょっと今ね、いろいろねお話しいただいてます。ちょっと今ですね、今聞いてるのはですね、現在のねフィリピン株式市場のね状況、ちょっとね今ダウントレンドになってると思うんですけども、その辺がどういうふうにね見てらっしゃるのかっていうお話を聞きまして、そうですね。今やっぱり全体的にですね、インフレがね高まってきていると。これはね世界的なインフレ傾向の中で、フィリピンのねインフレもlatest inflation data is 6%.
The latest for January is 8.7. Now the BSP's full year average is around 6.3 or 6.4%. Okay.
ということで、最近一番直近のねインフレ率ですね、1月これが 8.7% までねフィリピンも上がってますので、年間2022年年間通してだいたい 6% ぐらいということで、それをね、インフレを対峙するためにですね、フィリピンの中央銀行ですね、BSP ね、こちらの方もね今利上げをねしておりますので、そういった関係でちょっとね直近のね株式市場はちょっと弱含みになっているということですね。What is the latest policy rate of BSP, and what do you think about the prospect of BSP?
The BSP, I think, is they're looking at further rate hikes because of the high inflation scenario. Now, the BSP has two concerns. One is Philippine inflation. Secondly, to keep the benchmark rates in tandem with the rate hikes in the US. So the pressure is coming from both sides right now. So as of the last I heard from our central bank governor, they're projecting more rate hikes, as much as 50 basis points going forward. Right now, if you look at inflation, you look at the real yield, no? Meaning inflation minus the central bank's yield. The current real yield is negative 2.7, which is one of the lowest in Asia. So effectively, that is saying that the BSP needs to be more aggressive for them to be effective in addressing inflation.
Okay. So BSP
is currently at 6%. The overnight rate is at 6%.
6% now.
That's right.
Okay.
But inflation is 8.7. So for you to have a positive yield, the BSP rate should be at 9%. Either inflation goes down or the yield has to go up more aggressively. So that's the kind of pressure we're experiencing right now.
そうですね。そういったことで、ちょっとね、すごい内容的にはちょっとテクニカルな内容になっちゃうんですけども、世界的な今動きですよね。インフレとこの金利というところでありまして、フィリピンの方は直近が 8.7% のインフレまでいってるんですけども、中央銀行の方もね利上げをしておりますので、今6% ですねになってますというところなんですけど、でもですねこれインフレが 8.7 なので、まだね金利の方が、低いということでマイナス 2.7% ですか、低いということで、これ東南アジアの中で一番低いらしいので、そういった意味ではこの、中央銀行の利上げがもう少しねしばらく続くだろうということで、そうなってくるとちょっと株式市場直近のね株式市場にとってはちょっと弱含みなのかなというところであります。Okay, we understand the current market situation. So what do you think about the market turnaround is?
When will the market turn around? Well, right now is the earnings reporting season, Hitoshi-san. And most of the earnings that have come out for the full year is within expectations. Now, we are going through a series of earnings calls with these listed companies for the outlook going forward. But the one thing we notice, Hitoshi-san, is that most of the companies have cut down in terms of capital expenditures.
Cut the capital expenditure.
So that sends you a signal that they're becoming less aggressive. So we sort of would temper that. I think what we can say is that at least for the first quarter of this year, the market would be cautious. Okay, because they want to be more, how would I say this, have a better picture of what's going to happen. We believe that inflation will start taper off in the second quarter, because the base by next year would already be higher by the second quarter. And hopefully by then the supply chain situation would be addressed. So if there would be a turnaround, Hitoshi-san, I think it should be by the second half of the year. So the first quarter would more or less be weak. You go into the Holy Week period, which is normally a dull period. But by the second half, I think things will become a little bit more clear and positive, hopefully. But right now, the earnings that they're projecting are being maintained. If you maintain the earnings without any major downgrades, the index should be at 7,500 by year end.
700, 500 in the,
yes,
at the end of the year.
Yes, that's right. But most of the bullish price action will happen in the second half.
そうですね、今ね現状はねこういったちょっと高金利高インフレ続いてるんですけど、さすがにねこれもねピークアウトをねしてくるだろうということなんですが、直ちにねちょっとピークアウトするというよりはですね、ちょっとこの今年の2023年の第一四半期ですね、こちらはまだちょっとですね市場関係者もまだちょっとこうねコーシャスって言い方してますけど、ちょっと注意深く見てるんで、そんなにねまだなんていうのかな上がっていくって感じではなくて。セカンドクォーターですね、第2四半期ぐらいからですね、徐々にですね、そういったそのインフレのピークアウトだとかですね、金利の利上げが止まってくるとかね、そういうのがね出てく 来るというね、そういう前提でいくとですね、株価がですね、本格的に回復してくるのは、今年の2023年のですね、下半期ですね、ここからは上がってくるんじゃないかということで、ジョビスさんの予想としてはですね、今年の年末ですね、7500ぐらいね、試すような動きになるんじゃないかと。Today the latest price is 6,600
It's around 6,600.
6,000 で your
It's actually here 6,622.
622ね。
Yeah.
今日のね、今ビデオを撮ってる今日の終値が6622なんで。So 7,500 is pretty big jump. It could be happen in the
Actually,
second
if you
half.
look at the other brokers, some are projecting 8,200,
Yeah,
or
already.
even higher. Yeah.
これは他のね証券会社はもっと8000とかね予想しているところもあるんで、結構ね今日の価格から見るとね結構ね大きく上がりそうなんですけどもね。はい。Okay, we understood the market situation and inflation and financial policy. From now I want to hear about more fundamental and industrial business side of.
But before that, Hitoshi-san, if I may say, the 7,500 is my personal target. We have to come up with our house view. We don't have a final house view yet for the year end. I'm assuming no changes in projected earnings. 7,500 is using the average PE for the last 5 years, just for you to know. Okay.
この7500っていうのはね、このジョビスさんの個人的なね資産ということなんですけど、過去のねその PER とかからね、見るとそれぐらいいけるんじゃないかというお話であります。Okay,じゃあ let's go to the more fundamental business.
Yes.
In a point of more medium and longer term.
Sure.
So for as an investor like us, what industry or what sector is going to be good to invest now?
Well, right now we really like the utility sector. Obviously, with the uncertainty in the economy, you want to go defensive. And defense, you cannot get more defensive than power and water, regardless of the situation of the economy. These services are inelastic in demand, particularly power. Considering that power we have a supply-demand imbalance. If you actually look at the price of the Western prices, which is the market price for electricity, has been going up quite substantially. So I think from December, it's around 5 pesos per kilowatt, now to around 7.4 pesos per kilowatt. But I have to check the numbers, Itoshi-san, but that's my estimate. Now, for water utilities, in the same demand is going to be inelastic. But the beauty with water utilities, Itoshi-san, this year, the water utility companies, Maynilad and Manila Water, are going to get a big break. They're getting a rate hike for the first time in so many years. So that should definitely translate to higher earnings for the likes of Manila Water, DMCI, and Metro Pacific. Secondly, of course, with high inflation,
これからね、ここからもうちょっとファンダメンタルというかですね、どういう業界とかね、どういうセクターがいいんでしょうかという話に移ってきてるんですけども、最初に挙げてもらったのがですね、ユーティリティっていうところで、ユーティリティっていうのはその電気、水道、ガスみたいなねところなんですけども、よくディフェンシブ銘柄とかね、言われてる部分で、要はこういうちょっと経済環境とかね、市場環境が不安定な時でも継続的にね需要があるということで。電気ですよね、水道というところで、あと、フィリピンもですね、このインフレの流れの中でですね、この電気、水道のね、こういったものもですね、こういったものは公共サービスなんで、勝手に値上げとかできないんですけども、一応この値上げのね、承認とかもされているので、このあたりはね、ディフェンシブ銘柄として面白いんじゃないかということで、パワーですね、パワーメラルコ。
Aboitiz Power. Power generation companies like Aboitiz Power, Semirara, and yes, Meralco.
And Meralco ね。
Yes, water utilities would be Manila Water.
Manila Water。はい。 で、具体的な、銘柄とするとですね、発電のねアボイティスパワーとかですね、あと、同じく発電のセミララーマイニング SCC ですね、それからあとマニラエレクトリック、メラルコですね、こういったところが、電力関連の銘柄としては面白いんじゃないかと。あと水道の方はですね、こちらはですねマニラウォーターですね。Okay.
Next sector would be banking. Obviously, with high inflation, pressures on interest rates are going up, and we are very bullish only on the big banks, the big three, because some of the smaller, medium-sized banks are experiencing a margin squeeze because they are not able to increase their deposit levels, the low-cost deposit levels. It's only the big three banks. No? So net interest margins have been going up evidently on the big three. So beneficiaries, particularly Metrobank, BDO, and BPI.
なるほどね。はい。で次のね注目するセクターとしてはその銀行ですね。はい。これはね当然ですね日本の銀行株なんかも今結構ね注目されてますけども、結局ね金利がね上がってくるとですね銀行のね貸し出し金利もね上がってくるというところで、銀行ただ全部の銀行というよりはですねやっぱりこうやってね価格転嫁じゃないですけどもこう金利をねしっかり上げていけるところというところで、フィリピンのねビッグ3ですね、ビッグ3バンクで、これ何かっていうとですねメトロバンクですね、メトロバンク、BDO、BPI ね、この3つの銀行株が注目じゃないかということであります。Thank you. Please go to next.
Next sector would be, if you notice a lot of narratives with regards to China reopening. Our favorite China reopening industry, of course, is the hotel leisure industry. Our favorite stock there is Bloomberry. Yes, Bloomberry. So we also think that the airline companies will also benefit. And the one we like, although right now it's still in the red, we believe that they will turn around this year, and that's Cebu Air.
Cebu Air ね。OK。はい。で次はですね、中国のねリオープンということでね、中国関連の銘柄で注目できるのが、銘柄というかまずセクターですね、ホテルですよね。当然ねインバウンドのお客さん、中国からのお客さんがねかなり急増すると見られておりますので、ホテルのところとしてはですね、銘柄としてはねブルームベリーでもこちらはですね、ホテルなんですけども、実はねカジノもねやってるカジノホテルなんでね、そういった意味ではすごく注目できるんじゃないかと。それからですねもう一つは航空会社ですね、航空会社はセブエアラインですね、こちらの方に注目しているということであります。So you don't pick up the PAL?
Well, PAL Hitoshi-san, as we've been discussing in the previous presentations we've been doing with you, we like stocks that are liquid, so there would be any liquidity discount, so you can get in and out more easily. We really prefer Cebu Air, which is more active.
フィリピン航空もねあるんですけども、流動性の観点とかからね言って、セブパシフィックの方がいいんじゃないかというお話であります。
That's right. If I recall correctly also, I think Philippine Airlines, I think, is in a bigger deficit than Cebu. That's my recollection, but I'm not sure. I have to check.
そうですね。あとフィリピン航空はねすごくね大きな今負債がありますので、そういった関係もあってね、安定感とその流動性ということで、セブパシフィックの方がいいんじゃないかということであります。
Okay, next sector will be commodities, Hitoshi-san. Yeah, again, a China reopening angle. Obviously, with China reopening, demand for commodities like copper, nickel, and all the base metals are going to increase. We're experiencing a little bit of a pullback right now, but eventually, with the full reopening, demand should pick up. So that would be Nickel Asia for nickel. For precious metals, it's not necessarily related to the reopening, but of course with the China reopening, demand for jewelry will also go up from China and India, and also because of economic uncertainties, even geopolitical in nature, the best hedge would be gold. And we think gold is just going through a correction right now, but we're bullish on gold. And our alpha stock for gold is Apex Mining Corporation. APX.
APX ね。
Yes, Apex Mining Corporation. So 3 commodity stocks, it's nickel,
Asia,
Apex, and well, we like Atlas, but it's not that liquid, so we'll just stick with Nickel Asia and Apex Mining Corporation.
なるほど。はい。でこっち次はですね、いわゆるコモディティ関連ということで、これも中国のね、経済がこうね、また回復してくるっていう中で、中国からの需要がね、すごく大きくなってくると、いう関連なんですけども、具体的にはですね、それは銅だったりですね、ニッケルだったりですね。あと、ちょっとこれは実需とは違うんですけども、やっぱりこう経済が不安定な時は金がね結構変わるので、あと金ゴールドですね、この辺の銘柄ということでありまして、具体的な銘柄としてはですね、ニッケル関連でいうとですね、ニッケルアジアですね、はい、こちらになります。こちらニッケルアジアはですね、日本のね住友 have a pretty big partnership with Nickel Asia ですね。住友金属鉱山もね出資している、ニッケルアジアね、こういったところ、それから金とかね銅でいくとですね APX ですね、APEX ね APEX アペックスマイニング、こういったところが注目できるんじゃないかということであります。Okay?
So basically, those are the main ones.
Okay, thank you. I want to ask you about many of our clients have a big interest in the telecom sector in Philippines. Telecom. So I want to hear about the telecom sector. Current situation, competitive strengths. So
If you notice, Satoshi-san, most of the telco companies high dividend paying because the telecom sector industry in the Philippines is already matured. Meaning everybody already has a cell phone. So there's really very little growth in terms of the telco space. The growth is coming more on the data and for PLDT and Globe and Converge, they're growing that side of the business. But overall, it's already a mature industry in a way. And,
mature in the mobile phone, but how about the fixed line broadband?
Fixed line is basically dead. I mean, like everybody now in the Philippines uses Viber, or a lot of apps that you can communicate. Actually, when I call my mates or my kids, I don't call I don't even know my landline anymore. My landline number, to be honest with you. So that's the fad here in the Philippines right now. That's why these telco companies don't have much capex anymore. They would rather pay dividends because there's really little room for growth already. So the growth is really from a startup company like Converge. But even Converge has already indicated as early as the third quarter last year that growth is already tapering off. And that's also reflected in the share price. So unfortunately, I think if for your Japanese clients, you have to approach the telco stocks more as dividend stocks right now. There's really not much growth to talk about. That's right, yeah.
なるほどなるほど。通信はね結構一見すごい良さそうに見えるんですけども、ジョビスさんの話だともう結構通信セクターはフィリピンにおいてもですね結構街はもう成熟してるんじゃないかと。実際確かにねフィリピンのね街というかですねフィリピンの人見てるとみんな当然モバイルフォン持ってね使ってますんでね、その辺ほとんどもう行き渡ってるんじゃないかというところですね。なので、成長性っていう意味では実はもうかなりね成熟しきっているところがありますねというところです。ただ一方で、ですね配当がね非常にいいと、逆に言うとですね、投資よりもね配当にお金が回ってくる、そういったね成熟してるからこそね配当が高いっていうそういう関連性になってくると思うんですけども、そういった意味でですね配当狙いというかね配当プレーをしていく上ではですねこの、通信セクターですねいいんじゃないかというところでありまして、具体的にはその PLDT ですねテルですねティッカーマークねとかあとグローブテレコムとかねそういった、ところですね。Do you have any information and something about the Starlink movement in Philippines? I read the news that the Starlink currently doing the business with a government agency, but is there any private company having a partnership?
I think still early in the game. It's very hard, Hitoshi-san. You know why? In the Philippines, the gadget that you need to buy is worth 20,000 pesos or roughly around $500, no? Just $500 for that modem for you to be able to avail of the Starlink service. I think the service at 2,700 per month is quite competitive, but to shell out the initial capex of almost $500, that's where it would limit the market for Starlink, because most of the users here are the middle to low income, so it would only be limited to the higher end consumers. So that's the initial feedback that I can give you. So I think people would have a hard time shelling out 20,000 pesos. Yeah.
なるほどね。はい。ちょっとスターリンクはね、フィリピンに進出してきてるわけなんですが、じゃあ具体的にね、このスターリンクがねの関連でね、フィリピンの株でね、どこが影響あるのかっていうのをちょっと聞いてみたんですけども、今のところですね、もちろんフィリピンにも進出してきてるんですけども、このスターリンクのこのモデムですかとかもね、結構$500ぐらいするらしくて、かなりね、フィリピンで高額になるので、浸透していくのには結構ね、時間がかかるんじゃないかっていうのと、ある程度本当にこう富裕層というかね、そういったところに限定されるんじゃないかということで、実際のこの株価とかにね関わってくるのはもうちょっと先なんじゃないかというお話でありました。
We'll give you a feedback within 1 month. Let's see. Within 1 month, let's see how the market would react to this new product.
Okay, that's all my questions. So do you want to say something more?
I just wanted to add, since you asked about the telco, Starlink coming in, that's gonna be bad for PLDT, Globe, and Converge. That's gonna be bad, of course. That's another competitor. Yeah. That's another negative for telcos.
スターリンクのね進出に関してはね、この大手のPLDT とかね、グローブに関してはね、純粋に競合が増えるということなんで、方向性としてはネガティブなインパクトがあるんじゃないかというお話でありました。はい。Okay, that's all my question. Do you want to add something?
Probably
more
Toshi-san, potential black swan. Potential black swans.
Black swan.
Yes. One would be geopolitics. So geopolitics would be something that we also have to watch out for. The problem with inflation, okay, using emergency powers and in a way imposing price controls. So anything that would affect prices that is not based on supply and demand would not be good for me. It's not going to be good for market. So these are things that perhaps we should watch out for. How the government will manage inflation. Will it be monetary and fiscal policy, or will there be intervention? So those are things that are quite worrisome. The positive really is we have to go through all of these things and let the market correct itself. Interest rates would eventually correct itself, and the supply chain problem, I think the government is moving towards the right direction in entering this pre-pack agreement within the ASEAN nation, which would basically impose zero tariffs on agricultural products to address the supply chain problem here. So these are things that hopefully, as I mentioned, we can see evolve in the second half of the year.
なるほどですね。今ちょっと付け加えてもらったのは、一つはその地政学的なリスクって、その台湾とかですね、中国とのね問題がね、出てきているので、この辺がねどういうふうにそのフィリピンのね経済とかね市場に影響してくるのかってのはちょっとちゃんと見といた方がいいですよっていう話ですね。それからあとは自由貿易協定リセップですね。これがフィリピンがねいよいよリセップにですね参加していくっていうことになってきましたので、ここでねプラスにね働いてくる業界、それからマイナスに働いてくるね業界とかあるんで、この辺もね、よく見といた方がいいんじゃないかというお話でありました。はい。Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you for having me.
presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.